All right, so we're starting a brand new chapter. We are out of gravitational forces and we're moving into graphing. So hopefully there's some things you know about graphing. Hopefully you've heard of this term before. Hopefully you know something. So we're just going to talk about some things in general. So you have the x-axis, which goes from left to right. And again, it goes from left to right. So left to right, or what we would say is horizontal. That's your x-axis. And then y-axis goes up and down or vertical. Okay, and so if you look over here, this thing says the origin, and the origin point is the point 0, 0, where the x coordinate and the y coordinate both are 0. Okay, so that's what that is right there. And then if you look in this section right here, all the numbers are positive and positive. This is where we normally will graph, and sometimes you'll hear it in science called an L graph or an L chart, and that's because we typically have positive data points, so then when we graph them, they will usually pop up in this coordinate right here, in this quadrant. So sometimes there can be negative data points, like we would say maybe like temperature, right? And what we might do is move this down a little bit, right? So things like that. So it can be changed. But for the most part, you're going to be in this top quadrant. And I'm going to pause the video here, and I'll come back and finish teaching after I teach a class. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. So you guys remember this graph that we had, and this is the one from the BMX, and it again is that L kind of chart or L graph, and it's that top right quadrant of the actual the graphing quadrants. So, and if you look right here, it doesn't go to the origin point, it does not go to 0. So if you look, it's like 19 and it's at 9.6. So sometimes for aesthetics purposes, so that your data can fill your graph, you would do something like that. All right, cool. Let's move to the next one. And hopefully you are accustomed to looking at these data tables. If not, don't worry. We will get you accustomed to it and how to read them appropriately. So if we're reading this data table, this 23.1, we got to take a look at it. What is it? Oh, it's the gravity. So it's the gravity, and it's the gravity of where? Jupiter. So if we read across the table, right, that tells us that this is the stuff for Jupiter, all this information here, and that this information in this specific column is for gravity. All right. Now, hopefully you guys remember this one. I know this would probably brings back nightmares for people because, yeah, this was hard. And remember, we graphed this whole thing by hand. But again, we are not going to be doing the graphing by hand. It is good to understand so you know what's going on inside the computer. But we're going to be doing some digital graphing. And some of the benefits of digital graphing is that you can actually submit it and share it to other people. It's easy to share to other folks. And then it's a little bit easier to do, especially once your numbers become so much larger. If your data points are only like 8, 9, or 10 data points, it's okay to plot points. But again, once it gets past that, then it becomes a long chore. All right, cool. I want you to pause this video. Again, pause this video and then make sure to get all this in there. I'm just going to keep talking about everything, but pause the video if you need to. So if you look here on the x-axis, that is, hold on. Okay, cool. So if you look here on the x-axis, that is where your independent variable is going to be. And for us, we just said that it is the type of creatures. So we can select what kind of creatures we're looking for. So we can say we're going to look for bears, we're going to look for squirrels, and we're going to look for mountain lions, right? Now, if you look on the y-axis, that's your dependent variable, and that is the number of creatures. We do not know how many bears or squirrels are going to be out there when we go and look. So that's something that is unknown. So that's the part of the lab or the experiment that you're going to be like, we're going to go and find. And so that's why they call it the dependent or responding variable, and it responds to the independent variable. So again, get all these things written in there. Yes, draw that graph down there. No, you do not have to draw all the little squares. Just make sure you get the L part of it in there. All right, cool. Next thing is next. And you know what? I'm just going to say, look at this data table all really well. Just look at it really well. And then we'll talk about this probably on Monday. But one thing I do want you to say is make sure to read the labels. Make sure to read everything and take a very, very, very good look at everything. So then that way you have an idea of what does all of this data mean. So if we looked at this number like 7 right here, what does this 7 mean? Yes, it is 7 seconds, but it's 7 seconds of flight time. So it's something very specific. And if we look at these airplanes, we're telling us right here, oh, they're paper airplanes. So they're made out of paper, right? And then if we look down here at these numbers down here, it's talking about the weight in grams. So that's letting us know like, oh, it doesn't have a very high weight. Okay. So those are all the things we're going to talk about for today. We will pick up right here on Monday. Hopefully you have an awesome week and love y'all. Peace.